Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Warrant Officer Kevin Close. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony around Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this National Memorial and Museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Corporal Clarence Page. Popularly known as Clary, Clarence Hallard Page was born on the 30th of April 1895 to Arthur and Annie Page of the York Peninsula in South Australia. He was born and grew up in Kadina, where he was employed with the Post Office. He was eventually transferred to Kapunda in the Barossa Valley as a telegraphist. There he continued his involvement in the cadets and received his commission as lieutenant in the senior cadets. From Kapunda, he went to remote Smoky Bay, where he was employed at the repeating station by the time he enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force, March 1915, a month before his 20th birthday. His experience as a telegraphist made him an obvious recruit for the 2nd Division Signals Company. He underwent initial training in Australia before being sent for overseas service. Page arrived in Egypt in September 1915 and spent some time on Gallipoli, but was evacuated from the peninsula with a fever at the end of November. He later spent time in hospital in Alexandria, suffering from frostbite. After he recovered and rejoined his unit, he was promoted to Lance Corporal. He was sent to France to fight on the Western Front in March 1916 and was promoted again shortly after his arrival. Corporal Page survived the fighting at the French village of Pozières and the subsequent fight for the Mouquet farm in July and August 1916. The fighting ended with Allied forces controlling the plateau north and east of the village in a position to menace the German bastion of Thiepval. But success seemed to come at a cost, which surpassed the cost of failure. In the words of the Australian official historian Charles Bean, the Pozières Ridge was more densely sown with Australian sacrifice than any other place on earth. Following its withdrawal from the front line, the 2nd Division Signals Company spent time training and playing football before being called into the front lines once more. On the 14th of October 1916, Corporal Page was killed in action in the front line in Belgium near a position called Railway Dugouts. His body was recovered from the battlefield and today lies in the Railway Dugouts burial ground under the words, "In memory of the dearly loved son of Mr. and Mrs. Page of Australia." After the war, his mother was asked to fill out a short circular to supply information for the Roll of Honour. One of the questions asked for any other biographical details likely to be of interest to the historian. Annie Page wrote that her son was just a lad whose motto was always duty first. Clarence Page was 21 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is on display today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal Clarence Hallard Page, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and good evening.